Thank you for joining us. This is Health Your Own Way podcast, and I am your host, Mo Atkins. Welcome to another episode. Today, we'll be discovering how to reclaim your sexual sovereignty. Yes, I said it, sexual sovereignty. I want to have this conversation, so I made sure I got a guest that can do this for us. So my guest speaker is Rashida. She's a sexual educator and an intimacy coach. So we've had her before. Girl made me learn. She made me sad, but she educated me. So Rashida, before we start, anything you want to add?
Sure. Well, just welcome. Thank you for having me here. I'm glad to be here on your awesome podcast. And I'm excited to start talking about sexual wellness and intimacy and connection and how to reclaim our sovereignty. What does that even look like? So I'm excited to be here.
Yes, because I saw your Instagram about sexual sovereignty. What do you mean by sovereignty? And I think when I was researching, it finally hit me. And I was just like, okay, before we go further, let's educate the individuals that are watching and listening. What is sexual sovereignty?
So sexual sovereignty really is, think of the word sovereignty. Sovereignty is like of power, it's control, it's autonomy, it's you being the one basically in control and in the driver's seat. So that's essentially what it is. It's reclaiming your sexual control and power. That's really what it is. It's just a nice word.
It's not a nice word. It's
power.
Perfect word.
It's a great word because I really like to bring in like the royalty of it all. Like sovereignty, when I think of sovereign, I think of queendom, I think of kingship, I think of like all of those sort of connotations. So that's why I chose that word sovereignty, because it's really about ruling your individual kingdom when it comes to sexuality.
It's a great thing because a lot of people don't realize that you are your own autonomy. You are your own space, right? And when I was reading it and I was researching, I was like, hey, okay, I am my own sovereignty. And I think a lot of people don't realize it. So then, to get more deeper, right? How do we as a woman discover or even reclaim our sexual sovereignty? Like, where do we start? Because the reason why I say this is I find that like we are told what our sexual reaction or activity, what we're meant to do. A lot of us are just assumed that we're just breeders. And I say this because that word just hurts me, breeders, but you know what I mean? Go ahead,
Yes.
Rashida, I
Yes.
apologize.
Yes. So the thing is, in order for you to sort of reclaim your sovereignty, I think we have to first acknowledge that our sovereignty, as you said, has been kind of taken away from us. That's the first way you can start to reclaim it, is by recognizing that, oh, maybe I'm not necessarily moving or operating in my full power, regardless of whatever that might look like. So that's the first step, I think, in really even acknowledging what is reclaiming my sovereignty and how does that look like for me. And then it's understanding that, yes, there are things, or people, or situations, institutions, ideas that have been working to help keep us from thinking about ourselves and our sexual beings in like a entire power and like really understanding who we are sexually. There are things and powers that be that are made to keep us from thinking this way. And so it's
100%.
acknowledging that these may be, playing a part in your story, even though that's not necessarily your choice. But this is the world and society that we live in. So because of that, we are sometimes informed by the ideas that everyone else has, and then we can bring them into our own sexuality. And so it's really learning what are those stories for you, because my story is going to be very different from your story and anyone else's who's listening. And so recognizing your story, what are the institutions, so what are the areas of shame or trauma or lack of confidence or lack of self-worth, what are those areas that are true for you that could be getting in the way of you really stepping into your sexual power and sovereignty?
I like when you say that because it's true. Like a lot of us, some women may feel shame. If you see something you want to try, like you want to feel a little more sexually not active, but sexually more embracive, for lack of a better choice of word. I find that, society would say, oh, you're too promiscuous, or, you might be, lack of a better choice, or a hoe. Sorry, you guys know,
No,
it's
all the
just,
words. Yeah.
yeah. I think I remember when I was young, like you would always have to make sure, you're the good girl, you weren't. And then if you thought about sex, stuff like that, you're the bad girl. You wouldn't find a good husband. Nobody would want you. And then I think I saw something on Instagram where this guy literally said, you know what, close your legs. Don't let things run through you. Right. And then he had like 7 baby mothers. I'm like, okay,
Sir.
well, look at yourself.
Have you taken your own advice, sir?
So I think the reason why I'm bringing this up is because you're right. You're saying that we have to acknowledge that we have to reclaim our own sovereignty, and we don't realize what society has put onto us. So a lot of us are don't know what we like.
Exactly. That's the first thing is that we don't know what we like. And not only that is we're not sure of who we are. So it's really difficult to know what you like, what you don't like, and all of those things if you're not even clear on who you are and what does that even mean for you. So like what does being your fullest sexual self look like for you? Like what does that mean? What kind of sex do you want to have? What kind of sex do you not want to have? Like just really understanding even those questions doesn't mean you have to necessarily act on them, doesn't mean that you have to go and actively seek to figure it all out, but just even bringing some awareness to what you want and what you don't want, I think is one of the biggest keys because, again, society has been telling us what we like and what we don't like. And so it's allowing yourself a moment of, I want to say, stillness because that to me is one of the biggest ways. I always say this is the first, like if you just want to even decide, what do I like? How do I embrace my sovereignty? My first step is always how much time do you spend with yourself? Because we can't figure out what we like if we've never even had the time to sit and ask ourselves what we like. And so sometimes it's giving yourself that space, the moment to actually just sit and figure it out and allow whatever to arise. And I think sometimes the problem is, and especially the work that I've seen, with the clients that I work with, the people, the women and the couples that I deal with, when we give ourselves that time to sit, things arise. And we don't want to necessarily deal with the things that might arise because they may not feel that great or they may feel make us feel uncomfortable. And so I think that's sometimes the hardest work in terms of reclaiming our sovereignty because the stuff that come up, we may not want to necessarily deal with them.
A lot of us, some of us have trauma that we're not even
Yeah.
self-aware of. So, and
Yeah.
I think, in your own opinion, your own experience, what are some of the common myths out there that would have a woman prevent from reclaiming their own sexual sovereignty, if there's any?
Oh, absolutely. Like you mentioned earlier about being too promiscuous. It's this idea that if I am confident in what I want, if I speak about what I want, that must mean I'm a promiscuous woman or I'm loose or I'm, all the other negative connotations. But all that means is that I'm a woman who knows what I like. Like that's literally all that that means. It doesn't mean that I'm anything else because I think we have to understand is you can choose to know all of what you want and like sexually and choose who you do that with and how you do that with because I think that's the other piece of the sovereignty is the choice. Sovereignty gives you freedom of choice. When we don't have our choices is when we're not in our power. And we don't have our choices because we've been told what we want. Therefore, it's not my choice anymore. It's someone else's choice that's been placed onto me. And so when I take back my choices, now I can make the decisions that are right for me. And so it's the ideas that we're promiscuous or we are quote unquote not good girls. I grew up with that too, that ideology of being a good girl and you don't
Yes.
do this and good girls don't do that and those kinds of girls do those things over there and whatever that is supposed to mean because really all that is just people are expressing themselves in their own individual way because we're all individuals. We're all going to do things in the way that feels good to us. Another I think myth, one of the ones that I was thinking about to myself is this idea that sexuality is something to be only kept in secret or in sort of like we don't talk about that. It's only between in the bedroom and we don't discuss it anywhere else. And I think that's also a very big misconception of reclaiming your sovereignty is that I'm only supposed to discuss it in those particular areas in that particular way. And we're really sexuality and sex when you think about it we were created from this thing so it should be a part of regular, normal,
Conversation.
everyday conversation because it's literally something that sustains our human race. So for us to only have it in the bedroom and only talk about it in that arena allows for a lot of misconception and a lot of misinformation because we're not talking about it otherwise.
But a lot of people are uncomfortable talking about it.
Yes.
Like it's
Yes. And so
it's
that's a
been
part of the reclaiming the sovereignty is reclaiming the uncomfortability around it. Because yes, I completely understand that it's uncomfortable to speak about, but it's only going to remain uncomfortable if we continue to not talk about it.
Like I have no issue having a conversation with my sexual partner and my boyfriend.
Hmm.
And I think, it's like it's like walking down the street and then you meet someone and you're like, so sexually, how do you like your sex? How do you like it's just a conversational starter? It's not. It really like it's like, the sky is blue. It's just not. But I think what you're trying to say is that, if you do see something sexual, it just shouldn't be a no. It should be a general conversation about certain things to educate people, and you shouldn't feel uncomfortable talking about it because it is part of life, is what you basically say. Like you see sex every day. When I see
Every
another
day,
person,
every day,
I see
everywhere we
sex when I look at
go.
you because you were created by a sexual act, right?
Right, right. And so that's understanding that we can talk about sex in ways that don't make us feel icky. And I think because when we think about sex, especially in this society where we very much go towards nudity and penetration and like
Mm-hmm.
those ideas and those images of what sexuality is. But sex is so much more than that. Sex could just be connection with someone. Sex could just be you speaking to someone and being in their presence. That's also connection. That's intimacy. So I think we sometimes miss the mark that it's not just the physical act of insert A into B. Like there's so much more than just that. So if we allowed ourselves to talk about all the other things, it would be a lot less uncomfortable because we're opening ourselves to talk about the other areas of sex and sexuality.
But they don't teach you that. Like I remember
Oh,
in high school, sexual education was the diagram of it was a physical action, right? And then I think if they open up the conversation that sex is not only physical, but there's an intimacy part, there's a connection, I think it'd be a lot more easier and comfortable. And I think there'll be a different narrative when it comes to sex if they start bringing that kind of information. Because a lot of us just like, I remember growing up until like really maybe getting more into the podcast, and I'm not going to age myself, but let's see. I'm almost 40. Okay. I'm almost 40. Let's
you
just put
look
that.
good, so who cares?
I know. Okay. Let's just say I'm my 39. I'm just like, I don't think up until like I really start getting into the podcast and having conversations with people like you and stuff that I understood what sexual intimacy was, right? You know what
Hmm.
I mean?
Hmm.
Like I remember growing up and even up to like you watch TV, you go into it's all sexual interaction. There's no like intimacy is not as big or overwhelming as the intercourse part of sex.
Yes, yes, you're absolutely right. And I think that is honestly just strategic. I believe that that was done on purpose. Like I
Okay.
think it was done to almost because if you think about if you think about how wonderful and how fulfilling those other aspects of sexuality can be, and if we take them away and we only make it this one particular way, who does that benefit? It doesn't benefit the greater population for us to think about sex in a small scope. It only benefits a certain kind of people who this benefits. And so we've been all operating from that blueprint, so to speak, from that way of being, from that way of existing. And I think we as a society, I think as people are becoming more aware and wanting to learn more about themselves, I think now we can start to change that narrative because, yes, we weren't taught these parts of sexuality. We weren't taught that connection is just as important, if not more important, than the actual act of sexual intercourse, because that's just one piece of what could be about sex. So I think it's really understanding that we have the choice and the options now to learn more, regardless if we weren't taught it all along. I wasn't necessarily taught these things either, but I made choices to learn them. So I think we have to recognize that in reclaiming our sovereignty, it's also reclaiming our right to learn. It's reclaiming our right to understand. It's reclaiming our right to make decisions that feel better for us based on new information. That's a part of the reclaiming. It's not accepting what I was told as like that's the law. It's recognizing that I may want to learn something different. I want to expose myself to new things and see what I like or what I don't like. Because just because you learn something new doesn't mean you have to take on that information.
Fair enough. Fair enough. It's
That's the
just
choice you
education.
get to do. Yeah.
I heard, and this is why I reached out to you, is that you're doing a 12-week program on
Yes.
reclaiming your sexual sovereignty. And I know that I have an idea of why based on the conversation we're having, but I'm not going to speak on your behalf. So I'm going to ask you why you felt there was a need for this.
So that's a really great question. So the reason why I felt there was a need for this program was because I needed it. I needed this program growing up. I needed this program as a young adult. I needed this program now, and it was birthed from that need of wanting to take control of my sexuality in the way that felt good to me. And in doing that, I recognized that, oh, if I feel this way, I'm sure there are tons of other people who also feel this way. I have the tools and the knowledge to be able to help you through this. Why not? It would be almost selfish of me to keep it to myself when I know the benefits from it, because there's a level of confidence, there's a level of peace, there's I can't even describe it. There's a level of just awareness of yourself once you really understand what you like and who you are in one of your most vulnerable settings. 'Cause I really believe who we are sexually is who we are everywhere else in the world. And so if we can understand who we are sexually, if we can understand who we are in our most vulnerable settings, then that helps you make better decisions and it makes you show up as a better person in the rest of the world. And so that's really what stemmed the birth of this program. And then understanding that we need time. So 12 weeks is really short in compared to all the time that it takes for us to learn about our sexuality, but it really helps us to understand that we can give ourselves space and intentionality. So the 12 weeks is like, I'm committing to myself. I'm committing to this life. I'm committing to my body. I'm committing to, whatever goals or dreams that I want to have for the relationships or sexual interactions that I want to have in my life. I'm committing to that. I'm putting, my intentions behind that. And then I'm saying I'm going to do the work to help bring myself to the other side of things. So that's really what birthed the program.
I like when you said that. And, when you're talking, most people, for me, what I'm getting from you is that you're continually learning and educating yourself. You don't,
Absolutely.
I say this because a lot of people just want to become gurus or
Hmm.
they know everything. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
you are, to me, it comes a lot more authentic from your end because you're like, okay, I have tools, but I'm also learning, right? And I'm growing. And if I'm making the effort to grow and learn, it's showing that this is you love this is your passion. This is something you want to do. You're not going to assume that you know everything because nobody knows everything. There's more to learn, right? So I appreciate you saying that because you said it was for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, literally. It was for it was for me. I created it because I needed to take myself through it. It was birthed from my own personal experiences, my own, like you said, we grew up in situations where we didn't talk about sexuality, and it wasn't um a conversation in my household growing up. It wasn't it wasn't open for those kinds of things. I grew up having body shame. I grew up feeling not confident about my complexion, about just
Hmm.
things of that nature. I'm a regular person like the next person, and I use this program and the skills and the tools that I had to lift myself out of that. And I was like, oh, this is pretty dope.
I
Somebody
like
else
that.
could feel this. And then that's literally what I've then taken, what worked for me, plus what other skills and all the knowledge that I've learned from along the ways. And that's what I help to bring to the clients because I know if it worked for me, at least it can work for somebody else.
I agree with you because even as a woman, you know what's like when you're growing up and you're uncomfortable in your own skin, stuff like that. But I feel sorry for the women that are watching social media. Oh, growing up in the age of social media, that
No,
will
it's
do
difficult.
damage on your
It's
self-esteem.
difficult. Like, luckily, we didn't have that constant bombardment of all these different images, and we have to recognize that those are also what is informing our sexuality. So if you're not clear on who you are, if you're not clear on what you bring to the table, so to speak, if you're not clear on the essence that makes you you, yes, social media can influence you, the beauty industry will influence you, all of these areas will influence you on how you feel and how you show up. Because if you don't feel confident in your body, how do you then show up confidently with your partner? It's almost impossible to do so. Or if you do show up, it's false confidence. It's not true. It's not from within. And so the work I do is to remove false confidence and make it be an intuitive confidence. Like it comes from inside of you. You know that who you are and what you like, and you can bring that forth to whoever you're with and whatever situation that you're with.
I also want to say that even the way you describe the program itself, it's not only sexual and well-being. I find that
Mm,
it's just you as a person learning, like the skill set that you will learn from this program itself, it will help you outside of the sexual part, like how
absolutely.
you show up in your day-to-day life with dealing with people in your career wise, your personal, like that's what I'm getting from. If
That's
correct.
exactly what it is.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
exactly what it is. It's from, so basically, my philosophy, and this is just because this is how I live my life, as my
Mhm.
foundation is me. So your foundation is you. So it's we work on the you part. I just take it from a sexuality lens because that is the area in which that I have the expertise. And I also feel that from my own, again, from my own experiences and from speaking to other clients and things of that nature, once we handle that, it's like sex and money are the two things that we don't like talking about in
Yes.
this society.
And
And once
politics. Sorry, go
and
ahead.
politics.
Sorry.
Exactly.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Exactly. And once we get a handle on sexuality for ourselves, I find that it somehow trickles into the rest of the areas of our life. Because if we really look at it as, if this is an area where I should be able to, and I say should very loosely,
Mhm.
but should be able to be as comfortable and confident with myself as well as my partner, however I choose. And if I don't feel comfortable there, how can I be comfortable in the boardroom? How can I be comfortable, with my family? How can I be fully my confident self when this area here that I'm really by myself, I'm not as confident? And so that's the piece that I help to work with my clients is let's work on that. And then you'll see the rest of your life start to transform.
I don't know what to say. Like, if you're not watching this, I'm
I love
clapping,
you, Mel.
okay? And I'm just like, okay, okay, I'll stop being silly. All right. I enjoy always having conversation with you because I find
Mm.
that it's just I learn a lot. I tell most of the people I speak to, you guys are my therapy. Okay, like this whole podcast has become my therapy. I've saved so much money. I don't know how much money I've saved. I have saved. Thank you, ladies and men. Okay, I'm gonna be real. If anybody was really, honestly, you guys need to start following this woman. Okay, but anyways, if anybody was really interested in it, sorry, where anybody wanted to, learn more about what you're offering, discover themselves, what's the best platform to reach you out on?
I would say the best platform to reach me out would definitely be through social media. So through Instagram, that's where I have the most presence. But I would definitely invite you to reach over to rashidaahmed.com. That is my home. That is my website. That is where I will have all of what is really, juicy to me. And so I would say definitely shoot over there. That's another great way to kind of get to know me and get to know what I do and how I do it and all that. Instagram is a really great tool because it shows you a little bit more pieces of, who I am on a day, more of a daily consistent basis. So if you're really trying to get to know the Rashida behind, everything else, then that would be a great opportunity to do so because I do believe in being transparent for the most part. Like I live my life literally how I talk about it and everywhere else. Like I am who I am all the places. And so whatever you see there is I share it on Instagram or I share it on my website or I share it anywhere else, sharing it here today on the podcast. This is literally who I am everywhere I go. And so that would be the best ways to find me is just looking for me on Instagram or again, like I said, on my website at rashidaahmed.com.
We're gonna have that there. And I think, for many of us women, even men, honestly, we're traumatized. Let me be real. We're all traumatized. Like if you
Yeah.
don't think you're traumatized, believe me, you're traumatized.
Yeah. We
I'm
all have
traumatized.
trauma. Yeah.
A lot of stuff that I've had to undo mentally of what I was taught. Just sometimes even the way you dress, even my opinion of other people based on what I've seen on TV has had to change. And I've learned that I can't judge people. So I think, following her and understanding what works best for you, if you're not ready to reach out, at least actively watch and try to educate yourself, like
Yeah, take
Rishi has
some of the
said.
information.
Yeah,
Yeah, because the thing about it, I always say healing is for free. Like that is always going to be available to you. So it's just up to you to take the information and apply it to your life. Because listening to this podcast could spark something for someone, and that was literally for free. So you don't necessarily only have to be in the sense of being a client and getting the work and doing. If you want to change your life, you can change your life however avenue you choose to do so. And so I definitely encourage people to listen in, just watch the videos, read a blog, read information, just allow yourself the option to learn something different, because that's really all that it is. I'm just telling you maybe a different perspective that maybe you didn't necessarily hear, and then you're allowing yourself to actually say, what does that mean for me? What does that feel like for me? That's really all that it is.
Basically, ignorance is not an excuse, is what she's saying. Okay.
Not.
Ignorance is
It's
not an
not.
excuse.
Ignorance is not bliss. It
It's
isn't. And
not.
and it's not. And we've been made to feel that it is, but it really isn't. Power actually is where the bliss is. Having your knowledge and having the wisdom is what bliss is. That's really what it is. When you know yourself and know what you like and you're confident to express it, uh, everything opens up at that point.
Basically, you have choices, is what she's saying. Okay. Just have
Yeah.
choices. I think before I let you go, anything you want to add or what's next for you before we let you go today, Rashida?
What is next for me? What is next for Rashida? You know what? You'll be seeing a lot of Rashida. I'm hoping to do a lot more speaking, a lot more conversations like this, because I really feel that it is important to get this message out there. I think people need to learn about reclaiming their sovereignty, or about reclaiming their power and having choices and freedom, because it's a great life to feel this way. And I really would love more people to experience it. So yeah, you'll definitely be seeing me way more. I'm trying to be on all the things, be all the places.
Yeah, she's coming back. But that's why
I'm
she's
coming
coming
back.
back. Yeah, go ahead. Mhm.
Definitely. I think because it's not it's not enough to just want to have these conversations and keep them on a micro scale. I really want to have things start going on a macro scale and really start having change be done on a grander scale. Like, I've never wanted to just keep this small and only keep it to myself. That's not it, because I know people can benefit from this work. And so it's always been a dream of mine to have this as big and as loud as I can go. And so that's kind of where I know you'll be seeing me more of that.
But I'm happy for you because you
Thank
look
you.
like you glow. If you're listening to this, you better go watch this on YouTube, okay? She's glowing. I need to glow like that right now.
Thank
I'm
you.
glowing slowly, but not as
You
glowing as her.
glowing too,
So
girl. You glowing too. You
thank you.
glowing too. Look at you. Please. 40 wear. I mean, 39 wear. Girl, please.
You were trying to age me for a second,
I'm
Rashida.
so sorry. Listen, even better, because if that's what 39 looks like,
Thank
we're
you,
only
Rashida.
we're only what, 3 years apart, girl. So
Oh, look.
you look phenomenal.
Thank you.
But that's what it
Rish-
is when we are living our lives in a way that is truer to who we are. It shows on the outside. And so people always ask me, how do you just seem like you're so positive, you're so happy? Because I've gotten rid of a lot of the stuff that was keeping me stuck and stagnant. I've cut a lot of that stuff off. I got rid of it.
Yes.
And when you do that, you literally feel lighter. And then you
Yes, you do.
look, you
You
look it
do.
too. The
You
outside starts to match
de-age.
what's going on the inside. Yeah,
You really de-age. You
you
de-age and
do.
you do. Like,
You do.
honestly, you do. If
You
you're
do.
dealing with some kind of trauma or dealing with a lot of toxic people or toxic lifestyle, like honestly, you don't know how good you can feel. Like I
Yeah.
speak from experience. You don't know how good you can feel.
Same, same. And that's
Mm,
why the program exists,
I
because it's
love
to
this.
take you out of that so you can have better, because better exists. Better is already out there waiting for us. It's just sometimes we're stuck in our own patterns, our own way of living, a way of being, and sometimes we don't even know any different. So it's not
Yeah,
even to make you feel bad. It's if you don't know what there's better exists, then why would you seek it? But we're
true.
here to tell you better exists. So if you want better, there is some work involved to get you there. That's all.
So reach out to Rashida, okay? Like we're not. I'm being serious here. Reach out to this woman. I made sure she came on this podcast because of what I saw. So reach out, okay? All right. Thank you very much, Rashida.
Thank you.
We're glad to have you join us. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, share with anyone that needs to be empowered and inspired, and don't forget to join us next week for the next episode of Health Your Way podcast. Have a good day, you guys.